morning, everybody. This is Coach Kerr with the Elvis Kelly Fight Team. I'm doing another episode of the Fight House Talks podcast. So, a little bit of housekeeping. As you know, we took a little break for a couple of weeks, and we're going to be taking a little bit of an admin break here after this episode. It's not, we're running to a timeline and time priority issues. Now we're stopping the show, but we're readjusting a few things. So, as you'll understand, I've been doing more episodes on the two FMA nerds talk about stuff, which I'm shifting priority over there to a little bit. So, but with that in mind, we're going to do a great episode today. I am bringing on Sifu, Eric, BigTex, Emert on, and we're going to have a fun afternoon talking about a wide variety of things. So, welcome my guest on today. Hey, Sifu, Eric, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. I'm gonna swap the screen here, but let's tell a story. Let's say who you are and where you come from and what brings you to the wonderful world of martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Sifu. Well, my name's Eric Emert. Everyone calls me BigTex up here in Washington. So I have my students call me Sifu Tex. It just makes it easier, as my dad is also named Eric. And he also helps me teach Kung Fu up here. Okay. So to make our students differentiate us easier in the classroom, it's Sifu Tex and Sifu Eric. But I originally come from Dallas, Texas, where I met Grandmaster Johnny Lee when I was around 7 years old. Okay. Started learning Kung Fu from him, and then stuck around there until about 10 years ago. Moved up to Vancouver, Washington, and started teaching up here.
Oh, fun. So what brought you to Washington in general, coming from Texas?
So it's always been a dream of mine, even since when I was a kid, to start a martial arts studio. I just fell in love with martial arts from an early age. Just was part of my life since my dad did it since he was a kid, since he was 18. Yeah. So I just naturally fell in love with martial arts. And at a certain point, my dad got contracted up to Vancouver for BP back about 10, 11 years ago. Okay. And so me and him have always chatted and talked about opening up a studio together. And, running a class is tough by yourself. So we decided to go in together and try and open up the My Jhong Law Horn branch of Kung Fu up here in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, awesome. So it's a bit of a culture shock coming from Texas to the Pacific Northwest. We were talking before the show about our joint experiences in Texas. I mean, I didn't grow up in Texas, but I was stationed there for 3.5-ish years. So, and moving up to Alaska, that was a bit of a culture shock. And I can imagine that is for you as well, coming from Texas to up there in Washington.
To a point, there's people everywhere. There's different types of people of all different backgrounds everywhere. I was very lucky that Dallas is actually a pretty big international city. And the schools that I went to were pretty international based. Like my elementary school, Dover Elementary, was the #1 school in the area for English as a second language. Okay. Which I didn't need, but it helped me grow up in an open mindset, I would say, to where I could kind of fit in anywhere. And so there was a small cultural shock when moving up here, but not too much, because there's, people of all walks of life in all parts of the world. And, I just try and stay kind to everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good mindset. It's one of the beautiful things about martial arts, as you're aware, and just like our audience, is martial arts is a universal language. And you get to meet all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life, and there's a lot of commonality as to the start. And I mean, even though the journey is a little bit different, the end result might be a little different, but the start point, the love of the martial arts is typically the common part. I mean, a lot of people do come in because a catastrophic incident outside of their control, such as a violent incident, which is fairly common, or there's the cultural aspect. But either way, eventually, for those who stick around, it turns into this love aspect of the love of what we do. And as a return to social media and turn and come back to the community, I have discovered the why we fight is based out of love, and it's a love of a thing.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. A love of a thing,
Yeah.
the love of the act of motion,
Mm-hmm.
the love of getting in there and getting hit. Some people
Yeah.
just like that.
Yeah.
The love of breaking down different goals that you set and
Mm-hmm.
challenging yourself to put yourself in situations that you've never been in, so you
Mm-hmm.
can succeed. Love is a very powerful tool that we use to help extend our lives in things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my love for martial arts is probably the number one thing that I have love for in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
always joke that like it's my first love, it's my only love, and it's going to be my last love. Because I've truthfully never found anything else that's kept me as engaged as
Yeah.
martial art does.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we the great thing about martial arts is there's so many different levels of martial arts and different aspects into martial arts, different ways that you can go. So if you
Mm-hmm.
really love forms, you go into forms 100%, push it, do it. If you love fighting, go into fighting, become a pro fighter, train to fight, learn how to fight, do that. If you love just, being there and being around it, be around it. Go and have fun. There's 100 things that you can find in martial arts. If you want the health benefits, go for the health benefits. Who
Yep.
cares? You don't have to learn how to fight. But, it all comes from that martial
Yeah.
aspect though. So
Yep.
remembering the origins and why we do it. But each person has their own reason to do it.
Yep. And I find the why changes over time based
Yeah.
upon perspective, our point in our life, physicality, our education.
Hmm.
So, and that's a beautiful thing. And also the why is intrinsic to the individual. And so to eliminate the ego comparative valuation thing is just like at the end of it, it was my experience. And whatever I do in it, it was mine too. And nobody will care more about it than me. And I feel like with everybody that I've talked to in this podcast and continue to talk in this kind of community is just that they're more worried about their journey in the end. It is selfish, but the fact is, when it comes to our experiences, the summation of our life, we kind of have to be selfish and self-advocate because it's our lives.
Hmm.
So, so
And one thing I said earlier today, someone was inquiring about one of the programs and stuff, and one of the things I told them, because they were asking about older, is it too late to start when you're 60s, 70s and stuff like that,
yeah.
which I say no, because there's different things to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and we listen to our body,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't force ourselves to do anything that's dangerous if we are not ready to do that. And there's benefits to it that last longer than just your time there, right?
Yep.
There's benefits that will last you throughout your entire life, even just those 1-2 years that you did martial arts for.
Yep, that reframing that mindset is it's interesting. So the interpretation about the internal arts, there is the misunderstanding of it, and then there's some of the more interesting, and then there is some of the very practical. And what I'm finding, especially with dealing with mental health, as I've done a lot of work with it these past several years, and it's one of those things that it's not a matter of it being done; it's about being managed and coping with. But
Mhm.
that's life in general. So with the internal arts that I find as my perspective is that mindfulness, that gratitude, that reframing, and finding the beautiful reasons, the art reasons from the martial that ends up being sustaining. And this is where that reframing the why is also important because that gives you longevity. Because the martial side, that's a limited window, and but
Yeah,
the art side, there's immense potential for longevity there.
100%. Like you said, the martial side. You know, I'm 36, and I'm already noticing a difference in my martial arts from when I was 32.
Yep.
I'm not jumping nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
I like to stay on the ground a lot more. And the fighting definitely takes a little bit more of a toll on you
Mm-hmm.
as you get a little older, a little more prone to injuries, little more time to recover. And
Yep.
recovery time, I have to remind myself, is actual kung fu training. So,
Yep. Yep.
which if you reframe it that way, then it's not so bad to take that rest day if you're feeling sore.
Yes.
So it's a finding that balance. is a lot of things. With internal martial arts, it's reason why I'm really pushing now, and I found a new love for internal martial arts recently. When I say recently, in the last like 8 years or so, um, which is for internal martial arts, not, you know, it's pretty fairly new, I guess.
Yeah.
um, so there's when I'm older, I still want to be good.
Yes.
Right. I'm used to being pretty okay now, in my martial arts. I want to continue to grow and get better, but I also want to continue to have a high level of understanding of martial arts and continue to be able to learn more. And to do that, you still have to keep going and keep going. And I
Yep.
found internal martial arts, that's the biggest well I've ever found. I can just dig and dig, and there's always more. And maybe one day there'll be a stopping point to it, but I doubt it. There's with Tai Chi and Qigong and Neigong and Fu
Mhm.
style Bagua and all Bagua. I study Fu.
Yeah.
It's just there's just so much to delve into besides
Mhm.
kicking and punching.
Yeah. Yep. It's the aspect of fighting is simple, but it's not easy. Um,
Ah, good.
because the fighting principles are simple because it's based on outcomes, structures of physics,
Mhm.
limits and potentials of the human frame, the fact that we live in a physical world. That stuff I got figured out a long time ago. Where the it's not easy part is one, violence, two, capability, three, preferences, all those other things that get us lost in the minutia. When
Mhm.
people figure that out, that yeah, it's fighting is simple, but it's not easy, and not get stuck in the minutia, they have that paradigm shift and ends up being where they have a longevity, that the longer mindset. And what the thing is, like with martial arts, especially somebody who's been doing it as long as we have been doing it, and same with our seniors, is we start out with a lot of people in the dojo, dojang, in the school, and there's only a few of us that remain. Because I mean,
Mhm.
people talk about mastery and proficiency. A big part of mastery is staying with it throughout the years. So, going back even further, though, so your father is your what would be the proper title for his seniority in your school?
So for so in terms of the are we speaking in terms of like when we're in class together with my teacher, or in class, because in class together he's technically my Sihing,
Hmm.
upperclassmate. He's
Okay.
a fourth degree black belt.
Mhm.
I'm still just a first degree.
Yeah.
I haven't tested in quite a while.
Yeah.
That hasn't even been on my mind. I don't. That's not even a thing I'm worried about.
Okay.
Um, um, but yeah, technically, so yeah, he is my Sihing
Okay.
in class. Here at the studio, he is my senior, for the belt. So I also call him Lasu in class,
Okay.
which is just head teacher, for
Okay.
the classroom. Give him that respect. He is my father. He brought me into it. I
Hmm.
do handle most of the teachings. Just driving the class. I'm a
Yep.
little younger, make the younger guy do the work, do the stuff. But I always defer to his instruction when it's time.
Ah,
I'm more the
nice.
whipping horse. Get moving, everyone. Jump higher.
So, uh, to put the image in people's mind, this he's the old man sipping tea at the corner. Or
Correct. Yeah. He
okay.
yeah. But for him, he's 63.
Yeah.
Yeah, 63. Still kicking and punching in every class.
Oh, awesome.
Still doing
So
the techniques with us. So
when going back a little bit further, how did your father get into kung fu, and better yet, why the
Mhm.
Chinese martial arts versus like anything else? Because it's curious to see what are some of the commonalities as to why people get into whatever method and martial lineage, but
Mhm.
it's also curious to see why they stuck with it.
Mhm.
So,
So one cool thing, so going into a little history, legend history, a lot of people already know this, but the story is that Bodhiyama, a yogi, did this trek, this pilgrimage up through China, to the Shaolin Temple, saw
mhm,
the monks, saw that they were all, out of shape, getting pillaged by bandits, having to pay tribute, and falling asleep during their meditation. So he went out, meditated, brought back his yoga that he already learned from India, and taught the yoga with the martial art aspects of it to the Shaolin Temple, and then thus Shaolin martial arts began. That's the legendary story of Bodhiyama and his track. So the way that ties in with my dad and the way he started martial arts is that his father, my grandfather, Pat Emert, he was into yoga. Total hippie guy. All right. So he was into yoga, and my dad wasn't. He's like, okay, this is cool. I see the benefits of it, but I want to punch something. I want to kick something.
That's fair.
So then he found wushu, long fist, northern long fist.
Okay.
And so he started doing some northern long fist, and then after that, he went to a tournament out in I want to say it was in the 1980s. The Shaolin Classic, I believe, is what it was called, out in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
Where our teacher, Grandmaster Johnny Lee, was holding his tournament. And so that's where he saw Johnny Lee's students for the very first time, and was just blown away because they were on a whole nother level than anything he's ever seen. And so then he was like, I want to learn that. And so he sought out a teacher, Russell Sauls, who lived in Texas, and started learning My Jhong Law Horn from Russell Sauls until Grandmaster Johnny Lee eventually moved to Dallas, Texas, to where we would start learning from Grandmaster Johnny Lee. And so it all comes from yoga. Even my entry into martial arts, which is kind of cool, it all kind of comes from that first introduction of yoga to my dad too, which is kind of cool. I'm like, hey, it's kind of like Bodhiyama in the Shaolin Temple.
Oh, and again, it turns into that internal art and cycle where yoga is a longevity methodology, but it does come from a martial tradition. So with that, I mean, did you skip the American Taekwondo phase? Because there's a lot of us that our beginnings is in a karate school, whether it's Shotokan or some form of ITF or WTF Taekwondo. And it's based on regionality. So that's interesting that there's such a large Chinese martial arts population in Texas, especially in the 80s and early 90s.
It grew. I would say that was the kind of the explosion time of it. We were really lucky in Dallas that we actually got two really cool schools, which were, of course, I have to say, we're the best because we are. With Johnny Lee's school, Lee's White Leopard Kung Fu in Dallas, Texas. And then there was another great who were actually kind of cousins with the Chin Wu Association, the Jingwu. Which you'll probably hear quite a lot through different Shaolin and Kung Fu. Hao Yun and Jen was the famous guy from Fearless that Jet Li did the movie about.
Beautiful movie.
So our style actually spent some time in Jingwu and Master. And so with that said, there was another master, Master Raymond Wong, who also moved to Texas and opened up Jingwu Association in Dallas, Texas too. So Dallas was very lucky to get some really good Kung Fu in it. There's some good Eel Claw in Austin, some good Wushu all over Texas. But the number one thing that was in Texas, karate.
Yeah, as
Texas
it is.
Karate.
I mean, you got Chuck Norris down there, so
exactly. I mean, I've met him so many times, so many karate tournaments, Power Rangers multiple times, karate tournaments. Texas was a big karate point fighting spot back in the 90s when I was a kid growing up. I remember, tournaments there quite often because the karate people would invite us just because my teacher, we would go and do the line dance for all the karate schools and do the tournaments.
So there's actually a possibility that we may have been in the same tournament at some point in our lives, because I'm 38 and I did the Texas Open there in Dallas a couple of times in the 2000s. So it's really interesting. And so it's interesting also. So regionality. So California is obviously the nexus point for Jeet Kune Do, and then leading up to Washington and Filipino martial arts, and just like the West Coast ends up being one of those primary hotspots. So like my adoptive father got started actually with American boxing and some of our other personal lineage, but with his introduction to traditional martial arts was by way of Taekwondo, later And later, through Cal Poly Tech, he actually took and got his ranking in Shoulé Foot. And as
Oh,
part of
cool.
it was part of the American Kung Fu Association back in the 70s and
Love
80s.
Charlie Foot.
Yeah.
Oh, so if I could do another style, like if
Mhm.
I did not have my Jhong Law Horn in Dallas, I would want Choi Foot there.
Yeah.
That is my favorite non-My Jhong Law Horn style. The
It-
big punches, we do a lot of their big punches and all
mhm,
those big roundhouse punches, white crane punch,
mhm.
upswings. Their footwork is similar. They like to jump
Yep.
for having solid footwork, which is great. So yeah, Choi Foot. I have so much respect for him.
Yeah. And so with that, it's actually where a lot of my staff work. I can trace a lot of my staff work to Charlie Foot, even though it's been decades since I've actually actively participated in it. But it's interesting because of regionality and availability, what you get involved in.
Mhm.
And just in the same, I don't know, did you do any of the NASCA tournaments back in the 2000s?
Not me.
Okay.
I was very lucky. Like our school was just awesome.
Yeah.
We had a 6-time world champion from NASCA, John Su.
I know John. I
You know John Su?
competed. Yeah, I competed
Yeah.
against him back in the 2000s. I would
Yep.
routinely see him up at Diamond Nationals.
Yep. Do you see his chain whips?
Yep.
Yeah, that comes from us. Well, that's John. That's John's form.
Yeah.
But he learned chain whip in Kung Fu from my teacher. He's my Sihing. John Su is my Sihing.
Well, it's a small world because I would see him quite often throughout the circuit there on NASCA.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually where on NASCA is where I got very introduced to wushu because of him, DX, and who's the other big wushu practitioner with the Paul Mitchell team. It'll come back to me later on, but yeah, small world. John Su is a very kind person from what I remember.
Very kind person.
Yeah.
You know, he was one of my heroes because when I was growing up there, you know, he was already a black belt in karate when he found us. You know, his uncle, Henry Su, actually was our instructor and taught me my first Kung Fu form, my first, he helped me with my staff form. Sifu Henry Su, he actually teaches out in Capel for Wu Yi martial arts, and him and John Su opened it together. So John Su, you know, he ran our demo team in Dallas, Texas, Team White Leopard.
Yeah.
You know, for the longest time, he helped us get established. And I was so happy that last hey, Bote. What's up, Bo? I'm so happy that last February when I went back for Chinese New Year, I got to see John Su. He came in for the banquet and I got to do my straight sword. And right after I got off stage, I ran right up to him. I was like, John Su, how'd it look? He was like, you got good. I was like, yeah, biggest compliment ever. Cause you know, I grew up watching him do these crazy feats and his butterfly twist. And
him. Yeah. The other one was Steve Terada. He was fun to watch. Oh man. Yeah. Him, Jim and the Win, just that whole crew was a real fun time in my martial arts upbringing, is seeing what could become and these acrobatic feats. And I can imagine, as you're describing, that's something that was similar for your experience. So which leads into, though, like, you inspire the next generation with your students and your content creation, because here's the big difference between the 2000s and today. We have social media. We have the wide variety of social media. And I feel that the American, like North American Sport Karate Association, kind of missed out because of the time period. Because a lot of these practitioners, I mean, they're now older in their 40s and late 30s. And they didn't have, I mean, we got to see stuff on ESPN Live back in the day. But I can only imagine what would be like to see them live today on social media, and just that level of inspiration. But because of that leads to your generation and the things that you could put out. So I'll end up popping up here in the window the things that you do. But what have you found is probably the more helpful part about being in this time of technology, especially post-pandemic?
So First, I just noticed I need to clear up a quick little thing
Yeah.
from Facebook comments. Evidently, my dad's first teacher was a Taekwondo guy, and he actually
Okay.
did Choi Li Foot before Long Fist.
Oh, nice.
So
Very
that's
nice.
yeah, funny how I love it, and then I never knew that.
Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, so back to your question. With technology nowadays, I think it's amazing. Truthfully, COVID was a big culture shock for us.
Yep.
Changed kind of our way that we have to look at technology and martial arts in the world. Because there is always so much skepticism about technology and virtual learning and stuff like that. And there still is some. And I'm going to preface this with there is nothing like having your one-on-one instructor with you. You can go through details. There's nothing like it. It is by far the best way to learn martial arts.
Gotta touch hands.
Gotta touch hands. Sometimes the feeling of it is just its own thing. Now, with that said, I think that we are in a new kind of world digitally, that we have opportunities to teach things that aren't easily accessible to be able to people, and like you said, like we were talking about the regions. Certain stuff like Fu Baguazhang, Baguan as its own art is so hard to find. You know, it was held as a guarded art for the longest time because back then, you have to guard your arts. You're fighting for real, and you don't want them to know your secrets.
Yep.
But nowadays, since people don't have it in their area, I can easily share it with the world and share different little training techniques and stuff like that.
Yep.
What I'm really hoping to do is that with this new app that I'm launching, which is going to be a full Kung Fu program, a full Tai Chi program, and then, learn Tai Chi today. That way they can, people who don't have that access to real Chinese traditional martial arts can find it. And then the great thing about the app is that they'll be able to pull it up anywhere. They can stream it to their TV. They can go out to the park. I'm going to have audio cues. That way all you need is audio cues. Some people do that better. With YouTube, because, that's just sharing the art. YouTube is for promotion and for my fun, right?
Yeah.
I'm such a ham. I was a theater kid that I love just being on camera and having fun.
Yep.
And so the technology, we have so many different opportunities to spread culture of the Chinese martial arts, which that's what traditional martial arts is. We're holders of a culture, of a piece of culture. We're not I don't learn Kung Fu to go around and beat people up.
Yeah.
Right. That's not my thing. I learn it because I was lucky enough to learn it at an early age, fall in love with the culture parts of it, and I want to share it to everyone else. So, technology is one way to do that. And video recording. I give all of my students recordings of the forms once they complete the form or get halfway through. That way they have a reference to it. Now, I will say I did get into trouble with technology once. The birth of YouTube.
Yeah.
There is a time when a student can get excited and take on too much and start learning stuff that they're outside of their normal training regimen that they probably shouldn't be taking on yet. There's a certain point where you should start learning more than one thing.
Yeah.
But, in your early stages, you probably shouldn't. You should probably stick to something, maybe one or two styles and listen to your teacher strictly on those until you get a strong basis.
Yep. You have to have a foundation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, being in traditional Kung Fu, a lot of the acrobatics don't come till later.
Yeah.
Because you want a strong foundation before you start doing them. Otherwise, they just look like trash.
Yep.
Well, I got excited, and so I wanted to learn all these flashy wushu forms. And then one day, Master Lee walks in, sees me with my phone learning a wushu form. He's like, you do that pretty good, but maybe you should wait. Maybe you should do what I say first. He's like, learn that later. And then he gave me a talk about how, at a certain point, there is a timing that you go and you look and you use your Kung Fu eyes. And you take something from over here, take something from over here and create, take the good stuff, be a filter. But at a young martial art phase, maybe leave that to the masters to find out what's good to pull here and there.
Yeah.
So I had that little talking, getting a little too excited to learn a bunch of stuff that I wasn't ready for.
That's fair. I mean, the fact is, this stuff right here is fun. And
Yes.
because we're athletic and we're excited, we want to do this stuff. And actually, the thing what I found with part of the wisdom of it is the risk of injury is predominantly what I have discovered is the reasons why to hold people back on
Yep.
certain things. And I come from combat sports, and the issue I run into is for young athletes is like, I want to fight. I want to fight. I want to get in the ring. I want to get in the cage. And they want to do hard sparring, and they can get injured day one. And just getting them to have the patience to say, hey, let's do some technical work, let's do partner pad drills. There is a progression here for longevity, because you have to think about life outside of the ring so you don't end up with catastrophic traumatic brain injuries like I have and many others have because of bad training protocols and from back in the day. So that wisdom comes from like, well, been there, done that, voided the warranty, and understanding to curb the excitement of our athleticism and all these things is just like it for a young student that can seem like you're stifling their growth. The fact is, for the students out there, it's for your benefit. We're not trying to say you can't do this because it's tyranny. It's just like, been there, done that. You may want to consider getting a little stronger on your lifts so you don't miss and fall, or making sure your ankle placement, your foot placement's good on those lovely 540 kicks, because if you miss it, that's a permanent injury. But
That's
by the way, these are beautiful kicks. I can no longer do these kicks, so I'm a little envious. So
I was frustrated because about a year and a half ago, I was the heaviest I ever was and couldn't do those. And so, I was trying and I was like, whoa, that's not okay. And so I spent the last year getting back to the mobility of being able to jump again, which is fun. Again, that's just for fun. That's fun stuff. I wish I would have understood what my teacher was like. Oh yeah, that's just fun back in the day. Now I'm like, oh yeah, that's just fun. It's cool.
Because eventually the gravity takes over.
It does. It does. Which now I'm learning on, how to land lighter, and just normal things. Like it's, just normal. What am I trying to say? Just normal techniques that you don't have to do an extra spin on. You can still use the same force that you can generate with that without having to do an extra spin.
Yep.
It's fun.
So speaking for fun, you had mentioned Power Rangers back previous. So can you expound upon that? Because here's the other one too. As martial artists and with social media and just with the nature of television, it inspired a lot of kids growing up, and it continues to do. So like in the case of it, my son was watching Power Rangers yesterday, and it's a continual thing. So how and by what means was Power Rangers part of your equation here?
So actually, disclosure, a couple years ago, we did a demo for the Lawn Zoo Gardens, and I used Power Ranger music because, love it. Power Rangers, I was young when Power Rangers first came out, but I was already in martial arts at the time, just due to my father and being in love with, my dad already loving martial arts. So I jumped into Power Rangers, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. The cool thing was about in Texas karate tournaments is, every once in a while you would see a random Power Ranger or someone who, did stunt work on it or something like that. And, I remember being young, and I forgot his name, but it was the Black Ranger. He was there, and I was like, what? And, getting his autograph. I was scared to go up, talk to him, all that stuff. Yeah. Now I'd just go up to him and be like, yo, man, I have no fear now. But Power Rangers, to me, I love how it brings martial arts out, right?
Yeah.
Like when Power Rangers came out, there was obviously a rush to martial arts. Karate, I believe, was what the big rush was. I mean, every time there's a big media push of some sort of martial art thing, we in the martial art studios, we benefit a little bit. If we're doing our promotions right and tying it into stuff. Nowadays, social media is such a prominent thing that you can easily tie in pop culture
Yep.
with your martial arts programs and stuff like that. So Power Rangers is hard to watch now as a martial artist.
Yeah.
I have all these great feelings for when they transform and see all the cool stuff, but as soon as they start
Nostalgia.
moving, I'm just like, oh,
It's kind of like
I love to hate.
watching Netflix's Iron Fist. Yeah, the
I don't
hurt
know
is
how to
real.
respond to Iron Fist.
The hurt is real.
They had such a great premise.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with Western media when it comes to martial art shows. Movies, they'll do a little bit better here and there, but shows, they forget to hire, like, if you're gonna get a white person to be a martial artist, hire a white person who knows martial arts.
Yes.
Like, God, I mean, it's frustrating because, you know, there is a stigma a little bit around, and I'm not saying that, like, it's a stupid one, but sometimes I'm white, so I don't know martial arts.
Yeah.
It's
I've
dumb.
heard that.
It's dumb.
It is
And
dumb.
then they see someone move and they're like, oh wait, he does know martial arts, right? But that just plays into the stupid stigma of Westerners not knowing real traditional Chinese martial arts, which even movie martial arts anyway isn't traditional martial arts anyway. So it's just sorry, Iron Fist, I had such high hopes, and that was the biggest letdown I've seen in a long time when it comes to martial art movies.
Yep.
Or shows.
So another reference that I like throwing out there is Keanu Reeves, because Keanu Reeves, as we have all grown up with The Matrix, Keanu Reeves got a few notes about his lack of authenticity in his movement. And he took that as a point of inspiration to go forth and do some real training and come out of it 10 years later. He's got black belts in jiu-jitsu and judo and some sambo and some FMA and some Krav Maga. But unlike a lot of these actors who go in, and now of course their job is to act, but there's such a high standard because movies and media has been around for better half of 50 years, and the education of martial arts and having that critical eye set, what we know looks right, the audience just knows. And so as an actor, you can go in and just learn and adapt and move authentically. So like Matt Damon is our go-to white guy for the FMA community because he did some training through Jeff Amata, who's a student of Dan Inosanto. So there's that connection to Filipino martial arts. And he moves authentically, which is nice. But we don't get the credit of unless you go look in the credits itself. But point being is, he took it upon himself to actually have the respect for what he is trying to do and portray and actually get some real training and be authentic about it. And this is where I find, again, with movies, you got some great people who feel inspired and actually do the thing, and then you got everybody else. So,
yeah, I really think I should have gone into stunt work.
yes,
I had a couple opportunities. I blew them off. Now my buddy Gary Choi, shout out to Gary. He's doing really well with his stunt group, Rising Star Stunt Team. They're doing really great lately, and I'm just so proud of him. I met him in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. Okay. I went out to Boulder in Denver for about a year to help out a buddy, my seeing Adam Reed, with his Kung Fu school. Helped teach out there for a year, and he helped me with some life stuff that I was going through, which was, he's a really great guy. And so, what was really cool was I got to meet all these other people, in Colorado, Denver, that I never met, and Gary Choi was one of them. Really cool guy, really nice guy. He was actually helping with classes before I got there, and was willing to learn a couple of our forms to help teach and stuff like that. Really nice guy. But I always felt like, man, the stunt, the acting, Kung Fu would have been my go-to, but I stopped following that dream at a point when I auditioned for Medieval Times back in Dallas, Texas. Told me I was too short. I'm 5'6". And that kind of crushed me.
Which is funny because Europeans were short. for quite
It's
a
like
long time, except
those
for
are
the
the right.
northern people.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to
Uh,
crush the horse under me. Um,
no.
but it is what it is. It was
Yeah.
acting, and that's what medieval times is. They wanted the knight look, all that. I
Yeah.
didn't have long hair at the time. That might have sold them a little bit more. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but I that's one dream that I kind of wish I would have pursued a little bit more when it comes
Yeah.
to the martial arts, because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just a fun thing to do, right? And if you notice, I keep coming back to this fun thing, right?
Oh, that's that. Absolutely, it has
Mhm.
to be fun. You're more likely to do it if you enjoy it.
That right there. You're more likely to do it if you enjoy it. Why do anything that you don't enjoy?
Hmm.
And so stunt work, I really wish I would have gone into that. Again, one more shout out to Rising Star Stunt Team and Gary Choi for really putting that together. I think they're pushing forward for a fan made Batman movie right now. That's getting some traction. So fingers
Nice,
crossed with them.
nice. Yeah, stunt work is. Yeah, it was in passing for me, especially when I was doing the NASCA stuff.
Hmm.
Because I mean, there was the direct tie-ins. Because you got people like Jeff Amata who did a
Hmm.
lot of stunt work thereafter, and like Gemma Nguyen, and that was really the feeder process for that back then. But it was a short window for me because I went into combat sports full on, and then yeah, just fighting in the military. So, but looking back on it, that would have been fascinating and would have been
Yeah.
fun. But the other way around it, though, because of social media, there's a lot of excellent practitioners that get picked up because all the stuff that gets seen out there. Because
Hmm.
there's one lady who was on the Netflix film The Woman King. She's one of the spear fighters, but she's got a huge presence on social media, and that's how she got agent work. So yeah, it's an interesting time where we're at because of the opportunity for exposure. So with that, there might be a chance that you can get picked up again if that is
Yeah.
something that you continue to desire.
If they want me to do some Star Wars stuff, totally
Yeah.
down. Let's get some lightsaber choreography.
Yes.
Yeah. What's fun about the fight scene stuff, and that's what I really had fun doing with
Mhm.
some of my favorite forms are the two-man sets.
Yep.
The traditional two-man sets, like the hook swords behind me
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
spear. That's probably one of our highest end two-man sets.
Yep.
Grandmaster, yep, he that was one of his favorite sets. That and the saber and crutch, which is
Hmm.
pretty much a tonfa, just a little bit longer.
Yep.
Saber and crutch for spear. Those were his two sets. What's great about our and why I love fight scenes so much and the two-man sets is our style, My Jhong Law Horn or My Jhong Law Horn, or sorry, it's My Jhong Law Horn
Hmm.
and or My Jhong Law Horn, depending on the dialect, Cantonese or Mandarin.
Yep.
Um, with our style, it's a very military. I can't talk today. Militarist. Okay, military. It's a very
Militaristic.
militaristic style.
Yeah.
Um, let me see if I can't retrace the history. I'm going to be a little off on these dates and stuff, so
Yeah.
if I might not even mention the dates, but it started off as a so Mijong Lawhorn is the marriage of two different styles.
Hmm.
We have Mijong and then Lohan. Mijong is a famous style that you'll see practiced, and as its own through Shaolin. You'll see Mijong forms and all this
Hmm.
other Mijong Quan, that type of stuff. And then you'll also see Lohan or Arhat. Now, both of these come from the Shaolin Temple. So they're both Shaolin arts. At a certain point, you throughout the years, as the monks went out and did their different pilgrimages, the Yip family got a chance to learn the Mijong style, the Mijong Lohan style from them. At one point, it got merged, and over 10 generations or so, it got formatted into, I want to say it's 10 generations, got formatted into Mijong Lohorn and
Hmm.
really condensed into our style. You'll see another style Mijong taught in the Jinwu Association from Hao Yunjin, the Hao family Mijong. We don't know what happened, but at some point Mijong split, and there's the Hao family Mijong, and then My Jhong Law Horn and other My Jhongs. Okay, so sorry, I'm going all in different directions.
Well, it's fine.
So with the My Jhong Law Horn, Grandmaster Yip, his family guarded this ancient style, the secret style of My Jhong Law Horn, and used it eventually to start kind of like a caravan company, like Western Union. So they were hired to protect different caravans as they went through, and the All Victorious caravan group. I forget the name. All Victorious was part of it. It eventually happened to where Grandmaster Yip ended up being in charge of the caravan and taking it out, and the bandits saw him and were like, oh, we're going to go attack this caravan. So he fights them off with a spear and just dominates them. And so they get all scared. This happens a couple times to where they're finally, anytime they see the All Victorious banner, they just stop. They're like, nope, we're not attacking them. We're just going to let them go. He gets so famous that the Peking army, Beijing Peking army, they end up hiring him as the Westgate military instructor. And so he's teaching the military army, all these awesome kung fu fighting with hook swords. The horse cutter, the Zhama Dao, is another one. And so you'll see all of our two-man sets are very military style. They go and then they attack, go, and they're always together with each other. Very traditional movements, which is really cool.
That's awesome. Because
sorry, I stumbled through that a little bit.
No, it's fine because it's all learning. For me, these podcasts give me an opportunity to have great conversations with cool people. And I get to learn a lot of things that I wasn't exposed to, and just holds my education. So, no, that as a digression, that was a great digression. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure my audience did as well. And then, go ahead.
The best way to get all Victory Security Service of the Eastgate. There it is, Douglas. So perfect timing, Doug. I was just gonna say, Doug, he's our history holder, I would say. He does most of our research, and he actually wrote this awesome book. I'm going to put this up here. It's called Footsteps of the Masters, Following the Path of My Jhong Law Horn. So this was written about Grandmaster Yip, Grandmaster Lee, and Grandmaster Chi Hung Mar, and also Grandmaster Raymond Wong. Grandmaster Yip's, 3 disciples that came over to the to North America. Now, that book has some really great information. It has all the information that I just said, but it also has it much better explained. He has a very elegant way of putting all that information together. So I'll leave a link in the comments later if anyone wants to check it out. I highly suggest it. It's fantastic. It ties all this knowledge. So what I found with traditional martial arts, especially with how certain styles are, there's a lot of misinformation or contradicting information because, a lot of it wasn't, it wasn't written down.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just lies.
Yeah.
FMA community, there's a lot of lies.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's all like, these legends that we hear, half of them were like, is that true? Is it not? Where do we get the history from that? Where do we track it down? Is his lineage actually tied in with Grandmaster Yip? I'm very lucky that, I'm so closely related to Grandmaster Yip that I get it straight from his students, Grandmaster Lee. So Douglas did an excellent job just going back, also contacting different schools through Hong Kong, all over the world to get this information and get us finally a pretty solid recounting of the history of My Jhong Law Horn. As best we can, nowadays with whatever's lost.
Well, speaking of history of it, so names of styles, the stories of them are interesting in themselves. So can you explain the naming mechanics and the history of your particular style?
Perfect. Yeah. So there's 2 styles. Let's start with the first one. So the first style is Mi Jhong or My Jhong, which means lost track. Lost track was created by supposedly this famous monk who ended up getting in these fights. And as he was running away from one of the army was chasing him, trying to find him. He ran into a snowstorm, and he ran away all around the places, through the snow, and covered his tracks. The story, the legend, has it that he was running behind all these soldiers all around him. So when they looked down, they just saw all these different little footprints, and they couldn't keep up with where he was going. So they all just were going around in circles. So that's lost track. It's about being deceptive. A lot of it is about, I kick, so you bring your hands down and I punch you. I go left, so you go right. I go right, and then I go right to make you go right after I've made you want to go left. It's deceptive and deadly. So it brings you in and then get out, hit you without getting hit. Then there is the Lohan. So Lohan is a famous Shaolin monk. Lohan is Arhat. You'll see it famous in pretty much every Shaolin style. You'll hear something about Lohan. Lohan Kun. Everyone has a Lohan Kun or Lohan Chuan. Lohan has the famous 18 stances of Lohan, 18 postures. Horse stance, bow stance, low stance, twist stance, 1 foot stance. All of those technically are Lohan postures. Lohan almost just means Shaolin long fist nowadays. Almost. You'll see their own Lohan styles, but to really try and depict what Lohan is, it's a little too hard for me personally to be able to go into kind of details of Lohan, as I see it more as nowadays understanding it as a Shaolin long fist. That's kind of my interpretation of Lohan, though. We can't really see any true, I don't know where it's just Lohan in the My Jhong Law Horn, if there is ever just the Lohan part of it. I think it's always mixed with a little bit of My Jhong, the way that we do it. But if you notice, bow stance, we're still doing the 18 Lohan postures and keeping to, long fist standards.
Yeah. As you're talking and bring up these videos, it's making good connection from what I understand, and I can imagine for our audience as well, because a big issue that we find in martial arts, regardless of method, regionality, culture, and style, is there's always a misunderstanding about terminology. Not that it's the wrong term. Yes. It's the issue of having a uniform set of terminology, because the consistent issues with the Filipino martial arts is, one, people forget, even within our own community, there's 7,000 islands, something like 80 different distinct languages, not dialects, but distinct languages. So when we argue over things like Panantukin, Panuntukin, or Hubad or Hubad or Lubud, it's an issue of language and people not paying attention to it. I can imagine there's a similar thing in Chinese martial arts as well. So it's having
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
It's like Tai Chi, right? Tai Chi in the West has originally been spelled Taichi, Tai Chi. Now you will see it. The accepted term or spelling now, the proper is Taiji. Yes, that is the real way to spell it for everyone out there. Taiji. That's the right way. But here in the West, it's been Tai Chi for so long that no one knows that. You have to put Tai Chi on your thing and spell it this way. If you want to spell it the right way, you can put it in little parentheses or whatever. But for marketing purposes, for people to understand it, you need to put Tai Chi in there. And that comes down to, back in the days when there was no direct pinyin or whatever it's called, where it's the direct English translation and the actual way to see it. So especially with the different dialects, like My Jhong Law Horn, My Jhong Law Horn, My Jhong Law Horn. Everyone heard it a little bit different. And so they started spelling it different from the different branches. That's why you'll see some of us spell it Mizong. You'll see Myjhong. You know, it's that same kind of, oh, we didn't have a standard at that time when it came to the West.
Yeah.
So there are different stuff like that. Also, you know, the colloquial names of forms too. You know, a lot of it is, and this is something that I recently learned from Sifu Doug, is that a lot of these names come from the time period, right? You know, you'll see like Tongkun, that comes from the Tang Dynasty. Our form was developed. Or what we believe is that our form was developed in the Tang Dynasty, the one that we call Tongkun 1 or Tongkun 2, because it says that. So you'll see other forms that will also have like Tongkun spelled a little bit different, maybe the same, or Moifa, plum blossom.
Okay.
You know, you'll see a ton of people call plum blossom spear.
Yeah.
That's because it's plum blossom. That's the national flower. And so you'll see a lot of colloquial names like that. So when they got here, like I see Moiha or Moifa, you know, who knows the right way? Now we have a right way, but you know,
language has evolved due to its commercialization here in the West. It's kind of like, again, within the FMA community, FMA alone, people have a hard time connecting it because it's the issue of it's Filipino martial arts, but the people who use FMA as a term are Westerners, especially Americans and Canadians, and where people have, what I found is people who use Eskrima and Arnis, they are from back in the islands. Their lineage is back in the islands predominantly. People who use Kali that's a big indicator that they were developed here in the States, especially after Dan and Asanto. So that alone it's an indicator of time period and lineage and regionality. And it sounds like it's the same thing with Chinese martial arts as well.
Very much so. Yeah. I did not know that about the Kali Eskrima.
Yeah.
I first learned it as Kali.
Yep. Most Americans do.
Yep.
There's a documentary, there's several interviews with Guru Dana Nasanto where he was trying to make the connection between Kamut and Lihuk. Kamut being hand, Lihuk being movement, so hand movement, plus you have the Babayin symbol for Ka, which is sword, and then there's connections with Kalis. So there's, again, we talk about misunderstandings, mythology, and just trying to make stuff work for marketing. That's one of the things that just occurred. And also, I feel that there's a part of this thing about decolonization where creating new language, creating new terms, creates a new culture and separates us from colonial terminology and colonial mindset. So, because particularly Arnis and Eskrima, I mean, those are Spanish words. And there's a lot of people who just want to remove themselves from that connection and lineage. It's an interesting thought experiment proposition that I have in my own community of what is FMA, what is a Filipino, and what would the Philippines be without the Catholic Church? Big questions. I've yet to get answers, but it's okay. But just in the same with Chinese martial arts in the West, you see a very distinct methodology particular to modern China today, and then you see Chinese martial arts represented in the media, and there's a huge drive with, again, Westerners are the practitioners that we all see. And I can imagine there's a bit of a distinction and maybe a little bit of resistance between the two different paths of regionality.
What I see more of resistance is it's actually more of sport versus traditional. It's, I don't really see it more regional recently.
Okay.
I've been seeing more traditional versus sport.
Yep.
Too many traditional people bagging on sport. Too many sport saying traditional isn't real kung fu.
Yeah.
Where traditional people are saying wushu isn't real kung fu, which is just stupid. Like it's both it's two ends of one stick, right? There's all this in between, and then there's two ends, like all traditional, all wushu. It's when we find that happy middle, that's when we can use our staff right? And so it's I haven't really ran too much into the regional thing. There's a little bit, and you know, there's some belief. I've heard some talk, you know, about which I really don't want to make it into that, but you know, there's some talk about maybe a white guy teaching kung fu isn't right. Maybe he's trying to what is it? What's the word?
Appropriate.
Appropriate. There it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Which if as soon as they get to know me, they understand that it's not anything like that, because I grew up in this world. Right. It's about a love, and it's about a sharing love. If I wanted to make money and appropriate a culture to make money, it wouldn't be with martial arts.
Yeah, that's
You don't
that's
make
a
money
hard
with
way of
martial arts.
living.
Yeah.
No,
No. We teach because we like to teach. So I don't really run into much culture pushback. It's more of style pushback, traditional versus wushu.
Yeah, I can see that, because the misunderstanding, because it's a nationalized sport for the People's Republic of China, particular as like a demonstration art is what gets presented. At least especially when I was competing, that was one of the things that really distinct. Like wushu doesn't spar; they have sanda, and again, that was
awesome.
Yeah, which is awesome. One of my favorite UFC fighters of all time who entered the UFC in his 40s was Kung Lee.
Lee, there it is, waiting for it.
Yeah, I love that man. I love him. He's such a great fighter.
His sidekick.
His scissor takedown.
Oh,
Oof, yeah. So clean. But and again, going back to that thing of it all comes from something, it comes from martial, and you can apply it if you make it work for you. And again, this is that, as we're talking about, the resistance between the traditionalists and the contemporaries, but you have to, it's not so black and white. It doesn't have to be that way. Because again, talk about the why changes as we age and as we have more education, just in the same, like the martial side is where it starts, and the professional aspect and the application aspect, but that window is so small of continuing on, and it's not sustainable, especially at that composition. So you need the art side, the internal art, the intellectual process to enjoy it for longevity. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between those two, because we've seen the YouTube videos and bullshido of the Tai Chi master taking on the amateur or low ranking MMA fighter, and it's just it's dumb. It's dumb on both parts, I'm just going to say. So
I mean, you have to train to fight to be a fighter.
Yes,
that's just what it comes down to. If you're not training to fight, you're not training to fight, and you're not going to be a good fighter. You might have something in your back pocket that you can pull out on, or you might get lucky. You know, having some training is better than no training. But if you're not training to fight, don't accept fights. Don't challenge people. Don't try and go to fights. If you're, especially if you're doing just strictly Tai Chi. Nowadays, Tai Chi isn't taught as a fighting art. No, when it was developed and stuff, it's, you know, maybe it was, and there were practitioners who were Tai Chi practitioners that would kick and punch and punch hard, using internal power. But no one teaches that, or they don't understand that it's not just the forms practice that's happening with Tai Chi. You know, you are dipping into your, you know, your Dantian and your internal power and your Chi, which is developed completely different story. But this magic stuff that they try and do, where I'm gonna come out here and
Chi ball,
stop your fist like this. No, you're gonna get knocked out. You're gonna get hit. You got to train to fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tai Chi nowadays will help you be a better fighter, is what I see it.
Yeah. So my experience with Tai Chi was introduced through Tai Chi Chuan, and the way that it was taught to me, because I was also as a concurrent system, was Taikyoku Kempo, and I studied in those two systems for a couple of years. But the application back and forth was like, here's the form, and then we're going to do it, and then we did it, and again, if you're not training to fight and you're not actually putting practice, it's all theoretical anyways. I mean, all martial arts is theoretical until you actually do it and do it consistently. is
Yeah.
that one of the things that I find with a lot of martial arts and the styles that are distinct is that one, the practitioners are chasing after a thing that occurred maybe once or a few times for a person in a perfect scenario. And for that person, like they were able to pull off that one thing that was unique to them and the perfect scenario against the perfect opponent and all those things lining up. And we try to mimic that in the long run, which it's interesting, but having the practical mindset of it is it's not replicable in the same consistently. Just like within the FMA community, knife fighting is not something that's consistently replicatable within the scope of a Western mindset. Because if it was, you're diving into criminality or you're diving into warfare.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh well. There's an interesting comment here about modern wushu.
Ah, Douglas. Yeah, that's Sifu Doug.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. That's what was the development of wushu. Because they didn't want the people to fight back.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to get rid of kung fu completely. They couldn't,
Yeah.
And so wushu was developed. And I love wushu. I do. I love sport wushu. It's fantastic. The skills that you need to succeed in sport wushu are some of the highest level skills in kung fu that you can achieve.
Yep.
Now, to do that, to just train that, that's great. But I've noticed that some of the best wushu practitioners come from a traditional background.
Yeah.
If you look at Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
Donnie Yen's mom and me and my teacher share a style, Fu style Bagua.
Okay.
Bao SIMAC is Donnie Yen's mom is actually one of the few Fu practitioners here in the United States that are actually worth anything.
Okay.
So it's really cool that I think that it's really cool because Bao SIMAC is like one of my favorites, and Donnie Yen is my favorite kung fu martial art movie stars. I think it's really cool that we share that style. I don't know. I just geeked out there. I forgot what we were talking about.
Oh, we were talking about traditionalism and practitioners that come from a fighting background. I'm trying to find one of your videos of what we're talking about.
But so Bao SIMAC and Donnie Yen, Donnie Yen obviously had some traditional background before he got over to China for his wushu training, which is fantastic because Donnie Yen is. But I think all those, wushu teaches, if you do it right, if you have the right wushu instructor, you're going to be learning a lot of the same stuff that a traditional martial arts teacher is going to teach you anyway, because it's the foundation of good kung fu. And if you have the good foundation, you can go in any direction that you want. Absolutely. So I think that's what's the super important part of when you first start, is finding a teacher that can guide you and help you build a strong foundation. Because once that's done, you go into fighting. Here's Fu Bagua. Here's some. I love this fun play.
I love this. When you put this video out, it's like, this was beautiful, bro.
I had a really good teacher, Grandmaster Lee. He in the Northwest. Well, not in the Northwest, in the United States, is known as one of the highest level Bagua practitioners, if not the highest level. When you see him move, the dragon shape of our style that it's supposed to look like, it just encompasses him. It's crazy. He looks like a dragon.
Yeah. My favorite representation of the Bagua form has to be in the Jet Li movie, The One.
The One. That was fun.
I love that representation. And also, it's just for people who don't know, I'm going to put this in the perspective of combat sports and from Filipino martial arts, is the generation of circular power here, and then control, and then releasing of it. That is a phenomenal expression of athleticism and control. Because what people misunderstand about power is the result of good technique and control that technique. And if you're able to tap into it and release it when you want to, not just lose control of it, that's high level practitioners right there. And also from a dance perspective, you see a lot of dancers who can do these phenomenal fouettes and aerial movement and then stop on a dime and then generate that power again. That's an incredible feat of athleticism. So this is one of the reasons why I love this video of yours, is when you put it out there, I think I watched it way too many times than I should have.
It's mesmerizing. The spinning, it's like a hypnotism.
Yeah.
Starts going. No, it's fun. Bagua. So I say Tai Chi is the deepest,
Mhm.
right? I will always be learning more and more from Tai Chi. Probably
Yeah.
same with Bagua, but Bagua is by far the most difficult,
Mhm.
but also I think the most rewarding for me to when I perform it and when I practice it. I just love it so much. I think out of the three styles I do of My Jhong Law Horn, Bagua, and Tai Chi, I think Bagua is my favorite.
Oh, absolutely. It's
It's just,
beautiful.
and it's so hard to find and come by that I feel that I'm like a gatekeeper, of a hidden art that I have to preserve, and
Mhm.
I can't wait to teach more people it. I really haven't started teaching anyone Bagua here yet,
Mhm.
as I'm waiting for some basics to get some of my students to be ready for it. There's
Yeah.
some foundational stuff that has to be done before you should really start Bagua.
Absolutely. Well, remind me after the podcast. I'll get you in connection to my friend Sifu Carlton Dupe. He's there in Marysville. He owns Marysville Kung Fu with his wife, and this is right up his alley. You would just absolutely love this.
Oh yeah.
So, we've danced around a few generational things with Chinese martial arts, especially here in the West, and we were diving into this issue about Americans, white guys teaching kung fu and the perspective and conflict there. For those who don't understand or just don't know their history, um, American martial arts had a huge explosion after the 60s and leading to the 70s because of Bruce Lee. And there was that resistance of Bruce Lee teaching foreigners, and of course the term Guilo, which is a racist term, um, for teaching the outsider. The thing that I find after that is the majority of the practitioners I've come across from Bruce Lee's lineage are not Chinese. I mean, you got Wong Jack Mong and a few other individuals that are there, but the majority of the practitioners are not of Chinese descent or Chinese origination as an immigration over. Um, and I'm curious with one, how much exposure have you had to Jeet Kune Do? What's been your experiences with that community? And what do you believe are some of the benefits and what are some of the consequences of that exposure to Jeet Kune Do or the releasing of it to the community?
So,
Loaded topic.
Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Lee created a style that's not a style.
Yep.
Right. It's a theory. That's one way to look at it. But let's get past all that bull, and it's a style. It is nowadays interpreted as a style. So people who say that it's not a style, I'm just like, okay, go away. You don't you're talking semantics now. My exposure to it has been very minimal. I usually get exposed to Wing Chun, and then the Wing Chun, usually someone in either that Wing Chun group or the person is like, oh yeah, and I do Jeet Kune Do, and I'm like, oh, me too, because Jeet Kune Do to me is kung fu fighting. The theories that he does and that he talks about are all the same theories that my teacher was talking about, all the same stuff. The way of the intercepting fist, Jeet Kune. I mean, right there, that first thing, Jeet Kune. You punch over the punch. It's so my theories and with Jeet Kune Do, I don't have the biggest grasp on what Jeet Kune Do teaches and what Bruce Lee was trying to teach with Jeet Kune Do. Personally, I haven't actually read his book, which is a shame. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it. But with that said, every time I interacted with someone with Jeet Kune Do, and I say this kindly, it's been a very, I do Jeet Kune Do. I am a Jeet Kune Do guy. Your stuff is blah blah blah, and there's always some sort of, oh, you don't do Jeet Kune Do, and looking at me like I'm wrong in my thing because I don't do Jeet Kune Do, which is I'm not saying all practitioners are like that. It's just been my run-in with the few people who do Jeet Kune Do have been very much wanting to tell me that they do Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah, and trying to be delicate about this.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
There's a certain level of arrogance. There's also it's the issue of relying on a buzzword, a marketing term, and also claim to fame to a lineage. And this is a consistent issue regardless of what martial arts is. My grandmaster or my system did this. That's great. That's to the annals of history, but you're not them. What have you done? What are you doing? And what are you trying to become? Because if you're living in the rearview mirror, you're robbing yourself of the present and the future moving forward. So a lot of these people who rely on the laureates and accomplishments of their forebears, it's like it's kind of sad, is what it is.
But in the end, I do that too. I
Yeah.
do that all the time. My teacher is one of the 10th degree black belts and recognized in the world. So I pull on that. I mean, it's our lineages are important, and there is something to say about it. It's what you do with it, though. Are you making contributions to continue the lineage? What contributions are you making? It doesn't have to be a big contribution. Small contribution. You showing up to help out with class. That's just a small. You don't even have to be the head instructor. Just helping out when your teacher needs it. That is a huge contribution that a lot of times gets overlooked. That when I'm lucky that I finally have a student that I've been giving a little more responsibility to and leading classes, like leading groups of the class. So with that said, it's like, contribution. What are you doing? How are you? It's one of the things that I love about and I'm going to pronounce their name wrong because I'm horrible with names. Kaju Kimbo. Yeah.
I love me some Kaju Kempo.
I like their ideas, some of their theories, like their idea of bringing something back to the style in order to have your own specific branch named after you. Your style of Kaju Kimbo, you have to brought something else into it, or two things into it from a different style to help grow the system, which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. So my big thing is, my teacher always talked about contribution. What are we doing to keep the legacy alive? How do we keep My Jhong Law Horn from fading away into the dust? Keeping it going, sharing it with as many people as I can, help out whenever I can, demonstrate whenever I can. If the school has a big promotion going on, try and go to it and demonstrate it. That's how students can contribute. Showing up to class every day, paying your dues on time.
Pay your instructor. Pay your instructor. They have bills to pay, and if they have a family, pay your instructors. Sorry.
I never want money to be a reason to not come to my class. If you're having troubles, come talk to me. We'll work something out. Let's chat it out. But I have to pay for rent. I have to pay for the lights so we can practice here. The biggest contribution, pay your instructor. Show up, wear your uniform, demo when you can. If there's a school demo coming up, volunteer to help out.
And honestly, talk about relying on without your forebears, you won't be here today. Point fact for anybody. Two, standing on your own 2 feet and producing your own lineage and your own contribution. And the fact is, you're doing it right now. And this is how the next generation or our generation is carrying the weight of our forefathers and respect and love and honor to it. But this is how we do it today. And because there is a certain resistance that I have found with the generation or two generations, so the old men, of coming on a podcast. Yeah. So this is where the guys ahead of us by 10 years and us now, this is how we are able to share in and have our own legacy. Because for every online presenter, every content creator, I hate that term, but every content creator in the martial arts community, for every one, there's like 100, there's 1,000 practitioners who aren't putting stuff out there and not sharing out and trying to help grow the community. So
one of my favorite terminologies comes from the International Chinese Martial Art Championship, ICMAC.
Okay.
Friendship through martial arts. It's awesome. It's my favorite saying, friendship through martial arts.
Yes.
That doesn't just mean competition wise, that means other styles. That means, I people who yell at me on YouTube, friendship through martial arts, come do my class. If you don't like what I'm doing, come show me, let's trade. I've been trying to, YouTube's toxic. You've seen it. Comments, everyone with no authority wants to say something. It's cool.
Yep.
Just say it. I've learned to just, come try my class. Try it out. Tell me what you think.
What they don't understand is that negative interaction and engagement helps feed the algorithm.
Helps my algorithm.
Exactly. So, I mean,
more comments.
Yeah, be a troll. Thank you.
It's so funny.
Continue, sorry.
Yeah. So it's, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're talking about social media and helping share out and grow the community and your own contributions. So
one thing that I was a little worried when I first started my YouTube channel. I was a little timid on it. I didn't know how it was going to be receptive. I didn't know what I should share, what I shouldn't share. Should I even share anything? Do I put stuff on YouTube? Because, I do come from a traditional school. I have traditional teachers. Nope. Sorry.
There's a traditional teacher.
And so, you learn that some of them are little, they don't want, it's not that they don't want to share and that they don't want to show the style and to build the community around it. It's more of what can we share without oversharing?
Yes.
What can we do without giving away all the secrets? Because I will give you all the secrets if you come to my class.
Yeah, because there has to be a currency exchange. There just has to.
There's some value.
Yep. Pay your teachers.
Pay your teachers. I don't want to get too stuck up on that, but yeah, pay your teachers.
I will. That's my job.
If you don't pay, I'm going to send you Kurt. I'm going to send Kurt on you. Tell all my students, get the chicken man.
Oh no!
I'm sorry. I call you Chicken Man all the time. I hope that's okay.
No, I bring that cluckery on myself. So yeah, it's intentional. But no, absolutely, pay your teachers, because the fact is, they have to feed themselves. They have to pay the rent. They have to do all these things to share this knowledge with you. Because again, the resistance that I found from the old men is, it seems like you're giving it away for free when you put it out on social media. Which in some cases that's true. But what people miss is, you're putting it out there, but it's the lived in experience, hands-on with the student. As going back to our beginning of the conversation and post-pandemic, is you have to touch hands. You have to build that experience concurrently with instructor, student, and classmates to grow as a community. And the online community has its own growth pattern and model, but there's nothing like a culture of the dojo, of the schoolhouse, of the fight house. And that is what you're actually paying for. It's the time and lived in experience of not just the instructor, but the instructors prior to that and those in your community growing up.
And now that I'm older, there's a time that you hit where you start looking back on your life and stuff, and you look at decisions that you made and paths that you've gone and stuff like that. And what I've been doing is thinking about the paths that my teachers went on. You know, my teacher, Grandmaster Lee, he came here, went to Shreveport, opened up a school, did phenomenal there, went to Florida, continued opening up schools there, moved to Texas, opened up a school in Texas, you know, just now his students are opening up schools all over the United States. It's just a flourishing thing, right? And I'm glad that to be one of the branches to be promoting the art and continuing it up here in the Pacific Northwest. So I look back at what did my teacher do? You know, what struggles did he go through? How many times did he sit there and not know, oh, well, Brent's not doing well. I'm not getting enough students. I know the pandemic was financially
devastating
to all of us. All of us that were running schools. I was very lucky that, you know, I was in a rental space. I didn't have my own studio yet. Still don't yet, but we're building up to that.
Yeah.
That it wasn't that big of a hit for us because we were renting time, you know. Other people who own studios, I mean, multiple studios have closed over this because, yeah. So that pushes us towards the business model of more virtual training and virtual. So when I look back at my Kung Fu teacher's life, how would he navigate this new age technology by getting enough to get you hooked, just enough to, hey, come take more classes.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way that I see YouTube and social media marketing and Kung Fu on social media is yeah, I want to share it. And I'm going to share some stuff for free just because I get so excited. You're going to get it. It's just going to happen. But it is marketing. You know, the free tutorials I give out, that is part of my marketing plan to bring you and to get you interested in martial arts. You don't have to do martial arts with me. Fine. That's cool. But if you're interested in martial arts and you go do martial arts, then my job's done. I've helped spread somewhere someone is interested in martial arts. And that's my YouTube process. You know, yeah, come buy my app, come buy stuff from me, learn real traditional martial arts. But even if you just get interested in martial arts and find a teacher in your area, then I've done my job. YouTube's done its thing.
Absolutely. And again, for good or otherwise, the internet has created great exposure and great opportunities for connection, as like evident today. And it's a matter of what you do with it and your viewpoints on it. Because the thing that I ran into, so one, silver lining for the pandemic, I missed the whole loss of income during the pandemic because I had shut down my school prior to the pandemic. And given the fact of the way the climate was here in my community, the market, and just how poorly we were doing financially, the pandemic would have killed my gym anyways. So I missed that. And then I was also off social media during the entirety of the pandemic. I'm literally starting all over with social media because a YouTube channel prior to it was I think 10,000 strong, mainly because we had the fights, because I had a fight promotion. But starting over gives me new focus, new purpose, and new intentionality. And this is really what I find valuable, is having these great conversations about people and their process and the shared experiences of why we still do it and what we're trying to become. And with that leadership of those who are expressing it today, like yourself, is carrying the weight forward. And I find it very rewarding. So again, I want to thank you for doing that and also continuing doing that. And again, I'm going to say it again to everybody out there: pay your instructors. Just do it, because you don't get these opportunities without it. So, because love is not enough in a lot of cases. They still have to feed themselves.
You know, I went the starving artist route, and I'm okay with that. As long as I'm not actually starving, you know. But it's a passion. You know, I have my day job. I'm doing okay. The Kung Fu school is what I really want to take off. That's my main goal. Hopefully one day it'll be self-sustaining and be all I do. Teach Kung Fu and Tai Chi all my life. Until then, you know, I'll keep up with my day job and just sharing whatever I can to whoever's interested and willing to come and learn from me. You know, I have more than just the Kung Fu stuff to teach. You know, I do teach the Kung Fu, but I also, you know, have fight scene choreography, lightsabers. That's my
Mhm.
big thing right now. I'm
Oh,
obsessed with it. It's so much fun.
yes, it is.
I got
Yeah.
Jedi robes. Oh my goodness. I have Jedi robes. I went out and bought robes online. It's it's about having fun. And I keep coming back to that
Yeah.
because when growing up, I was that guy that was always worried about what people think.
Mhm.
Always.
Mhm.
I thought I was fat in my main training for black belt. I
Mhm.
thought I was overweight because I didn't have a six pack.
It's there. It's protected by your specially calibrated ab protector.
my,
Just know that.
I'm gonna have to steal that from you.
Go for it.
But it was a big self conscious thing, and I never wanted to do anything that might make me look goofy. Even though kung fu makes you look goofy all the time, I just never saw it. So I found this new love. YouTube actually really helped me give up any cares because everyone's going to talk trash about you on YouTube. So after doing a little bit of YouTube, I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to have fun as long as it doesn't hurt or put anyone else in danger or is
Mhm.
rude to anyone. As long as it's caring and loveful and kind, I'm going to do it and just have fun with it.
Mhm.
And that's my main message to everyone. Find what you love. Find what you want to do and do it with 100% passion. I call it the Gomez Adams. I read this online the other day. The Gomez Adams. He is the number one lovable person. He is the one character that is filled with love more than anything else.
Mhm.
Because no matter what he does it with passion and love. He wants a sword fight. He has the most fun sword fighting.
Mhm.
He loves his wife more than anyone and is passionate about his wife more than anything. His
Mhm.
trains, I've never seen someone have so much fun with trains. And I'm talking about, Adam's Family movie. Yeah. But it's the Gomez theory. It's do what you're going to do with so much passion that everyone else is just like, wow, he loves that. Or they
I-
love that.
the relationship model of Gomez and Morticia is the relationship people should follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are a beautiful couple that you don't see properly represented in popular media. And we
Mhm.
keep coming back to it. But again, popular media, whether it's literature, television, cartoons, whatever, they help inform the mentality, the psychology, and the perspective of the viewers. So it's again having the mindfulness of what you consume and what you do with it. And again, the beautiful aspect of doing the things that you love and sharing the things that you love and not wasting people's time is a big part of that. So, and I think what you're doing is a beautiful thing because we need more art in the world. We've got a lot of war, but we need more art in the world. And the thing that I keep going back to, uh, retrospectively looking at my life as a martial artist and as a soldier coming from a long lineage of warriors, is that often I wish that I had put down the knife and picked up the paintbrush more often. And I feel that is the same for a lot of people, is that we were robbed of so many beautiful artists because the necessity of warfare. I'm not saying war is bad. I'm saying war is necessary. But it comes at a cost, just like martial arts. We need the martial part to have the art part. But the martial part gives us the art because of a lot of pain. And there's purpose behind it. And that purpose can turn into passion and peace. And that's that art part. And what you're doing, this is an expression of joy and love, and it's art. And this is something that can inspire the next generation, just like Power Rangers did for us back in the 90s. It's all cyclic. Because here's the other one, too. What people don't understand, martial artists are a big bunch of fucking nerds. We just are.
Yeah, we are.
We are. And
100%.
I want to go even further. Soldiers, especially tier one operators. I can't tell you how many special operators I've known over the years, and also like not just military, but law enforcement and agency wise. A lot of these guys are big nerds. Like they play Dungeons and Dragons, they'll paint their minis, they will nerd out on comic books. It's because they just are, and it's okay to be a nerd because the fact is, being a nerd is an expression of love as well. You can be so stuck in this whole, I'm going to go on a little rant about toxic masculinity and the misunderstanding of it. But the fact is, when it gets so pigeonholed I just have to be this idea of an alpha male. I have to just be this violent creature. I just have to be this. Just is such a painful and terrible term that limits us. When we can be anything that we want, you can still be dangerous. You can be a dangerous nerd, and you can be a dangerous nerd who loves what they do and love whom they love because of what they do. It's a matter of mindset, shift in perspective.
100%. The toxic masculinity model is just, I really hope that it's finally starting to fade away with how much we're all just trashing it.
Well, it's a misunderstanding that I find. There are some straight toxic men out there, just is, and there's a lot of toxic women out there, just are.
Yeah,
we just have a toxic culture. Is basically what it is. We have a lot of broken people who don't have good models of positive behavior and coping mechanisms and intelligence in that level, and also not surrendering the ego enough to say, hey, I can be vulnerable, I can break down, I can take a knee, it's okay to fail, because failure is part of the process, it's a beautiful part. And just stepping back and having that moment of pause to say, hey, this sucks now. It could suck more if I stay this way in this victim mentality, but I got to do something with it. So in the process of all that pain, I got to put it to purpose and find peace. So,
there's work for everyone to do, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, wherever you need to go, there's work. I just hope the people that get too caught up into the, you need to be this way, this is alpha, beta, blah, 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 that they find whatever peace they're looking for eventually.
So an hour and 40 minutes into this, we've gone for a wide variety of things, but one of the things that we haven't gone about it is outside martial arts. Who are you? What do you do?
That's a good question.
Because that's a tricky part that we run into within this particular field, is that we self-identify based upon what we do, present, etc. Because like in the case of soldiers, we identify as a warrior, soldier. Martial artists, it's again what we do defines us, which is a tricky model. So prefacing that, who are you and what do you do outside the martial arts, and who are you trying to become?
So that's a really good question. Considering I don't do much outside of martial arts nowadays. It's kind of taken up my whole life. Okay. I do play guitar. I play drums and bass. But the main thing was martial arts my whole life. I did try my hand in music, and I come from a very music family. My uncle's got Grammys. My grandma was a jazz pianist. My dad's a fantastic guitarist. So it's very musical related, but I went the martial art route. And video games. I play a ton of video games. I used to do the part of it also is that I'm recently I quit drinking.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It'll be 3 years in July from when I made the decision that was not the path I wanted to go down anymore.
Yeah. We've had some conversations about that, but yeah, continue.
Yeah. And so it's something that I don't mind sharing about it. I wasn't a good drunk. just it is. Most people aren't good drunks.
No.
Some people have balance in their life. Some people can find balance in their life with that. I wasn't. And there was so long that I struggled with trying to figure out why I was struggling. And then, because drinking is a downer, depression, all that stuff that followed with it, ruining relationships, all of that. And so about 3 years ago, made the decision finally. I was like, I think I'm done. Never struggled with it since then. Not once. I never, every once in a while I'll be like, oh, what would a beer be like? Oh, maybe do I want to drink today? Nah. It just never pops in my head as something, yeah, let's go do that. I've lived that life. That's a chapter I closed the door on, and I don't feel like I need to reopen that door. With that said, that's what spurred on the fun. That's what brought the fun. When I gave up trying to do other stuff like drinking and going out to the bars with all my friends and stuff like that, is I bought a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
I quit drinking and I bought a lightsaber. And then I had fun. I found my childhood again, that I left at 16. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that a lot of us leave at too early of an age, when we're not doing it, when we get into that type of situation and that stuff too early. You
Yeah.
know, I was not an adult when I started drinking, and it affected my life because I kept going and I kept doing it. Made
Yeah.
bad choices, had a great time. Don't get me wrong, I have so many experiences and stuff that I wouldn't have traded, except maybe be a little more sober for it so I could have enjoyed it more.
Yeah. And that's
No.
the part of building resiliency comes from a wide variety of adversity and experiences that inform of who we are today, provided we survive to who we are today and then moving forward to who we're trying to become. So congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually, I find it, at the beginning I was like, it's no big deal. No big
No, it's
deal.
hard. It's fucking hard. I've been sober since 2016. It's hard. So,
Yeah, what I'm running into more lately is the aspect of, okay, I'm kind of ready to go out and make friends again,
mhm.
that aren't drinking, and I've never done that.
It's
That's the
so
weird thing.
ingrained in our culture. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and so I have goals for the summer to get out of my shell, because I've been also with launching of the app, I've been just dug into my office and just working and working. By office, I mean my little desk next to my bed,
Yeah.
editing and putting in the work to be able to launch the app and get the content created,
Mhm.
um, which took way more work than I thought. Um, yeah, but Doug, my black belt test, we never do as good as you want on your black belt test. No, I appreciate it, Doug. I am too. I am too. Black belt was a major milestone, and I want to say that. Okay, so here's the story of how I got sober. I went on a little bender. It
Mhm.
was July 4th weekend. I was like, yeah, cool, celebrating, woo, America. um, but that weekend there wasn't a. Oh, I know, Doug. That wasn't a dig. Don't worry, I know. I was just making fun of myself. I like to dig on myself. Um, and uh, so there was this big seminar, kung fu seminar coming up in Seattle, and I was
Mhm.
like, oh, it's a couple days away. I'm fine. And so I have my fun, and it took me 3 days to recover.
Mhm.
3 full days, and the seminar's there, and I'm trash at the seminar. Everyone, people at the seminar thought I looked good, but I knew where I was, and
Yeah.
I knew, yeah. And I promised myself the one thing that I saw it affect was the true love of my life.
Mhm.
Coming back to the original thing we were talking about, kung fu. I said that is my one true love, and it affected it, and I was like, done. Right then, right then was when I saw it affected, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I haven't regretted it since. It's been the best decision of my life, and not everyone has to go that route.
No.
But
No.
me, I I have more fun in kung fu now, and I just don't know how I went through hangovers, man.
Yeah. It catches
What were
up.
we thinking?
It catches up with you. And on the other side, that's particular to martial arts and combative activities. Brain injuries and alcohol don't mix very well at all.
Mm,
Um, there's enough data to prove through one combat sports, football, and combat that PTSD, TBI, and sobriety are absolutely necessary to deal with that because alcoholism. I talk about it often in my content. Is that
mm,
alcohol does awful things for your TBI and PTS?
mm,
It just does. So people want to have the information out there. I have a bunch of video work about it. I've also posted a bunch of uh, medical journals from the National Medical Institute, particular to PTSD, TBI, and alcoholism. So, just food for thought for people. Not
I
say,
would
yeah,
love to read and see more about that. Yeah, send me in any information you want. That's my way, Kurt. You know
yeah,
that.
we'll do. Um, yeah, and for those who find it, and I'm not saying like do what you want. because again, back to the whole thing of your experience is your own. If we want to live in a free liberal society and have free agency and liberty and all these things, do what you want. You're more than welcome to do what you want, because that is your right and your choice. So no judgment, but
Yeah,
do what
no.
you want.
And that's my thing. I just had my buddy in. It was great. My buddy came in town randomly on Monday, and I got to see him on Tuesday. And he was like, "You don't mind me?" Because it's kind of our first time hanging out since I quit drinking.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You don't mind that I drink, do you?" I was like, "No, man. I've made peace with it. I've been been around it. It's not that. It's just my choice. My choice is not to do that, which is fine. And that's how it should be. It should be everyone else's choice.
Yeah.
And me personally, I've noticed such a change in my internal kung fu. I've always felt chi, right? I've felt my chi, but there was something blocking it. And the leaps and bounds that I made in the 3 years of my internal martial arts are mind blowing. Without that extra barrier there to slow me down. So, if anyone's really looking to get their Tai Chi good, don't get drunk.
Yeah.
One beer to loosen you up for push hands. Master Lee says one beer is fine. They'll loosen you up. You'll be good. Not for me though. I don't have the beer. Master Lee used to say, if you have more than one beer, then you're drunk already. So Tai Chi doesn't work. So don't go.
Fair.
Don't do it.
That's fair.
He told us that at a kung fu camp once. We all had a beer and started doing push hands.
Yeah, push hands like clouds. Yeah, gate movement. Yeah, that's fun. That's actually, playing in that range is probably one of my preferred places to problem solve with physical movement. So.
I saw your knife video. That was awesome. I love that. It's just like push hands. You're problem solving. You're finding different pressures and different angles, and then how do you respond to that? It's a push and receive, and then give back, which really ties into the Tai Chi principles of push and receive.
Well, to put it quite candidly, it was push hands. It was rolling waters. It was Huba Lubud. It was whatever I do. It's all these things. It's human movement. So for people out there, the human form only moves so many times in so many different ways. We connect it to names and terminology. But the fact is, it is FMA, sure. It is karate, sure. It's silat, sure. There was definitely quite a bit of Tai Chi in there, and Wing Chun, sure. But the fact is, it's just connecting the systems is really, that's the higher level of martial arts, is finding the connections and making your own, with respect to what was before. But with the respect to what is before and actually understanding it, that's actually that higher level of intelligence, because you can actually pick apart saying, oh, that's what that was, and that's how that connects. That's very interesting.
I do that a ton in my kung fu play, and I call it play because I'm playing. When I'm just out there, and I always forget to set up my camera first. I should set up my camera, then go play, because I'll do the coolest stuff where I'm doing, just flow. Putting techniques together, and I'll be sticking to kind of styles and theories of it. And I do my coolest stuff when I never have the camera on, or I'm not actually thinking about what I'm doing and making a set. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. And that felt very My Jhong. Can I do it again? And then it's gone.
Yeah.
Or I'll flow between different arts and, do some My Jhong into Bagua, do some Tai Chi principles. And then all of a sudden I'll go back to and recreate that.
And you can't.
And it's gone because it's there, and it's to be lived in that moment. And then it's gone because it's already, it's here, right? It's here and here. It's just when those get released, sometimes you can recreate it, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, you can do some of the set patterns, but being present in that moment's gone. And this is, again, that release of being restrained because of ego and perception, and again, sharing out, like the lightsabers, like this clucking thing.
I love the chickens. It's the best.
it's fun is what it is, and it's my fun and I derive entertainment of it, but I'm also, again, being mindful of not wasting people's time and actually putting a kind of a lesson in there, even
Yep.
though I'm bridging it with satire. But it's possible. That's why Master Ken is a genius, because he's got a lot of satire and can carry the weight of his own skills.
Brilliant. He's one of my favorites. Gary Choi, Rising Star Stunt Team I was talking about earlier. Yeah, he did a video with Ken.
Nice.
He's on one of Ken's videos. It's great.
I've been trying to get him on the show for a while now. He's really busy. So
oh yeah, everyone's trying to get him on.
Yeah,
he's great.
Oh well. So this has been a wonderful and lovely conversation, and like I said before, the real, not guilty pleasure, the real part about these podcasts for me is I get to have a really cool conversation with a very cool and interesting friend. And if anybody watches it, cool. But for me, this is I get to have this time. So I want to thank you for the gift of your time and sharing in your story and your knowledge. Is there anything in particular you would like me to help present out there for you to share? Anything you like to close with?
Yeah. So a couple things. We're Eternal Arts Kung Fu School. We do a free week, so we invite anyone to come check us out and try out our Kung Fu Tai Chi programs. We're located at 9212 Northeast Highway 99, Suite 110 in Vancouver, Washington, 98665. Best way to find us is at eternalarts.org. Or you can find us or you can give us a call at 360-218-1941.
Awesome.
We have a new app launching. So if you're looking for online studying, learn a really cool martial art from the comfort of your home.
Awesome. I'll put these back up here. And of course, I put all your social media links in the show notes as well, but here's that for everybody.
Oh yeah, go like and subscribe if you haven't.
Yes.
That just helps the algorithms.
Yes.
I don't make money on YouTube.
That's such a niche market anyways. So.
Oh yeah. I think I'm at like, yeah, I don't make money on YouTube. I haven't gotten paid yet once.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
But I don't do it for YouTube isn't for money.
No, it's for fun, as it should be. So yeah, this has been a great conversation. I'm going to drop you back down, do my outro, but again, thank you for the gift of your time. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us for nearly 2 hours this on a Sunday afternoon. This has been amazing. So
I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to drop you down for a sec. All right, everybody. That was an excellent episode. I love doing these, and I appreciate the time and vulnerability and willingness people have to share their life with me in this present moment. So thank you. And also thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Like I said, a little bit of housekeeping. This is going to be the last episode for the Fight House Talks for a little while. We're taking a little admin break after that. But you can find me on the 2FMA Nerds Talk About Stuff podcast. I have a couple episodes coming up here soon. I'll throw my social links in the comments below. But yeah, thank you for hanging out and have a good afternoon. Thanks, everybody.